Welcome everyone to our educational webinar, and thank you guys for joining. Today's topic is creating complete digital twins using NX model-based definition MBD with PMI. My name is Mason Wu from AT Engineering. I am based in the San Diego office, and I'm very happy to be joined by Mike Zenadek from Siemens, who is a subject matter expert of NX software. He'll be the one presenting the topic today. Before we dive into our webinar, there are some housekeeping notes. All attendees will be muted throughout the webinar. If you have any questions, please type them into the chat and we'll have Mike answer them at the end of the presentation. You will also be able to ask him directly if you like, and we'll unmute you at the end. Just let us know. This webinar will be recorded and be available on our website and our YouTube channel. Before I hand this to Mike, I want to give a quick overview of AT Engineering, about who we are and how we might be able to support your team. Oops. So most people recognize AT as an engineering service company. Our core founders have been together for almost 40 years, and we have vast experience providing high-value engineering services focused on test and analysis-driven design. Majority of our businesses are in aerospace and defense industry, but we also have work on other industry, as you can see here. A little bit about who we are. We are an employee-owned small business with a full-time staff just over 200 people. And most of them have an advanced engineering degree, as you can see on the right. We have 7 national regional offices across the US, and I have mentioned them before. We have years and years experience focusing on design, analysis, and test. This includes everything from structural design, structural dynamics, thermal analysis, to fluid dynamics, and more. Testing-wise, we are also the leading independent modal test group in the US. We have a lot of experience flying our team to the test article location and conduct ground vibration testing and use that information to help drive the model design. Aside from our engineering service business, this is how most of you joining the webinar today know about AT Engineering. We are a Siemens VAR, value-added reseller. We not only sell the product, we also provide software support and training to our customer, including this one. We really focus on products and solutions that help design, analysis, and test. For example, NX, which is the topic for today, is mainly used for design. VMAP and Star CCM Plus for simulation. And for testing, we're the sole Siemens partner in the US providing Siemens testing hardware and software. Because we sell what we use, our customers really appreciate our familiarity of these tools, and it really shows in our hotline support. Every time they call, they are speaking with engineers who use the software every single day and understand the problem. In addition, we teach a variety of classes, primarily dealing with simulation. And we actually generate all the Siemens training material for the Nastran software. So a lot of time when you go up online and try to find a Nastran class on the Siemens website, you will actually see the location being either in San Diego or Denver, Colorado, because those are two of our regional offices. And we'll be the one teaching it. Last slide before I hand it to Mike, I want to encourage people to visit our ATA website. It has our hotline support information, which is one of the unique advantage getting your Siemens software support from ATA. And we have some free resources, including past webinars, PMAP APIs, white papers, and you'll be able to download. With that being said, I'm really happy to introduce today's speaker, Mike Zenadek, and take it away, Mike.
Great, thank you, Mason. Okay, great. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule and taking a look at, our solutions around model-based definition. So over the next 45 minutes or so, we'll level set with what some of the definitions are around this, PMI and model-based definition, model-based enterprise. We'll go into some short demos that show you authoring, validating PMI, how to automate and reuse the PMI, and then ways to collaborate downstream both with your customers and suppliers, and then downstream usage opportunities for this. And then we'll close out with how to get started. Where can you learn more? What can you do with the product? And then, as Mason said, we'll take questions at the end. If you do have anything that you want to ask while we're working, you can put those in the chat. I also have my colleague, Brandon Carter is on. So he also supports NX CAD from our channel enablement team. So we'll get moving, and please let us know if you have any questions. So with that, let's take a look at just level setting on a definition, right? So there are a lot of terms, there's a lot of acronyms that get thrown around. And so it really is, I think this graphic defines it well and gives you a good graphical image of what this is, right? So when we talk about the product and manufacturing information, PMI for short, those are really the entities that you as a designer are placing on the model. You probably are familiar with that, know and understand that. Other acronyms that get thrown around is MBD, right? So model-based definition. And this is really concerning the practice, the process of doing this and using the PMI information, right? So making sure that you document everything that today we do in drawings. We may have other spec sheets, may have other information, but that whole process of completely defining that digital twin of your product. And then finally is MBE, model-based enterprise. And so that's where we're talking about, the downstream uses of this, because the intent is not to just make a pretty picture, move from drafting to the 3D model. It really is to be able to use this information to speed up your process in manufacturing and quality and such. So those are really the three levels that we talk about this. And just so you know, right? So there's some feature function, there's the process, and then what you're doing throughout your company. And, just like drafting, this is standard based, and we, Siemens, have been involved with this really from the start. We're part of many of the standard committees. We participate and make sure that we align with everything that's going on and how these standards are distributed out to the industries. So just know that, we take this information, we're using it, we're a part of it, and you can be confident as you use our tools. So as a company, usually we look at, where are you on this maturity level? So, you're going from the left, we're trying to get you from a drawing centric 2D world over to the model-based enterprise. And so everybody has a little bit different journey. They may be at a little different stop on this, but it's trying to move from drawings being that source of record to getting the model and all of the PMI information on there to be that source of record. And so, there are different industries that are going faster or slower than others. Definitely, aerospace and defense, they tend to be more towards the right end. They're leading the charge. Also, our automotive industry, they're adopting and moving and driving this through their process. So they're probably the ones I would say that I work with. They're out leading the charge here. But each of you probably know exactly where you fit and maybe where you're looking to go. And that's great where ATA and Siemens can help you to get there. So when you look at where model-based definition fits in, it is one of the core elements within NX. So if you've seen this wheel before, this is really all of our key functional areas within the NX product. And so under mechanical design, model-based definition holds its own key pillar within that. And that's really important to us for how we continue to develop the product and invest in this particular area. And so when we talk about NX specifically, functionality and things that you'll see today, one of those is NX PMI. So it is our ability and sets of tools that document the model, right? As powerful and as completely as you would do on a 2D drawing. So you'll see some of that as we walk through today. The other piece is what we call NX MBD. So what we do here are a set of tools to actually help automate the creation process. So NX PMI is the user is manually working to apply and put all that information on the model. NX MBD is where they can actually take a set of rules and apply it to the geometry and generate much quicker the PMI that they're looking for their model. And you'll see that as well today. So here really are some of the key solution capabilities around model-based definition inside of NX. So as we talked about, we'll talk through some of the and show you some of the PMI authoring capabilities. We'll talk a little bit about and show the automation. And then in each of those vignettes, we'll be focused on validating, right? So as your users are applying PMI to the model, you want to make sure it's correct. It has the right definition, the right information. They're not making any mistakes in that. And so our validation tools are built in. We'll also then look on the bottom side is, some of the searching and reporting. As you get more usage of the PMI and your model-based process is becoming more mature, and if you have very, detailed assemblies and things like that, you're going to want to be able to find the information. You may want to bubble up some of that to show it at a sub-assembly or assembly level. So we'll show some things there, how that works. And then interoperability is key. So we realize, not everybody uses NX, although we would love that to be the case. We have to be able to work with other people's information. And so we'll show you some things for how, when you import data, how do we use the PMI information that may come from CATIA, that may come from Creo or SolidWorks or others. So interoperability is very important, as well as collaboration, right? So how do you collaborate with this? If you're going to create this in NX, how do you share it? How do people consume it downstream? And then finally, we'll look at the model-based enterprise, right? So show you a little bit about how we consume it with our tools, our set of tools from Siemens in the Siemens Accelerator portfolio. But goal number one is, the most complete, comprehensive digital twin of your product. So as we start with author and validate, inside of NX, we have all of our different applications. PMI is one of those applications that you would turn on inside of your modeling environment. And the toolbar will look something like this. It will cover everything from things that you would do for dimensioning, for annotating. Again, think of it as it's for 3D, just like you do for 2D. There's other things for, section views and putting tables on there, and any of that type of information that you can do on a 2D drawing, we capture that in the 3D. And so then towards the right end are things to publish information. So when you're done with this, how do we publish this out through a technical data package so that other people can use it, drive their business processes from there? So one of the key things that I did mention is the advisor, right? And so this really helps your designers as they're going through a process to make sure that, hey, once I've applied this information, did I make any mistakes? And not only to identify mistakes, but to actually give you guidance for how to fix that. So, we're going in and actually looking to make sure things are properly identified using the PMI. And so that'll be a key element to making sure that, not only are you applying it, but here's how to fix it if you have made any mistakes in there. So let's take a brief look at that then through a demonstration, and we'll do some authoring and validating just using straight PMI functionality. So in our example that we have here, maybe some of you have seen me demonstrate this before, but in our reciprocating saw, we have one of the drive components. And so this one lends itself to showcasing how do we do MBD, right? So as you're in here, think of it just like a drawing, right? You're view-based, so you want to have specific views, top, right, left, and you're going to go in and apply certain PMI information there. So whether it's the dimensions, whether it's the feature control frames and such, you're working within that view. And as you can see, you can also create section views just like you would in 2D, right? So you're able to slice through, get more detail and information in there. And so if you've used NX, what you'll notice is that the PMI menus for creation look just like the 2D drafting for dimensions and notes and stuff. So it lowers that learning curve, right? If you've been accustomed to NX drafting, this is a easy transition from the menu side of it. So everything that you're doing, everything that you're working should be comfortable, should see how you select entities, how you define the PMI. All of that should work just like you're familiar with already. And so the concept is all of that capability is there. And as you work through it, the advisor is there when you're done, right? So or even intermediate, if you want to check, see how you're doing, you see that it uses our visual reporting so that you get those tags right on the data. You know exactly what the issue is. And as I mentioned, when you look at the detailed info panel, it will tell you how to fix the problem, or at least guide you to an option of what you should do to fix it. So in this example, max material condition should not be applied to the shape and size that we had on there. In this case, we were actually having what we called a reference. So we don't want to put a tolerance. We just want it to be a reference value. And then something like that, where you have just a diameter, you really should have, tolerance and put on that. And so you can see that as you work through that, it's going to clean those up. It may give you some information windows or any place where you may have still some work to do. So it can be very interactive as you're building. Go check, continue to apply and put the information on. But what's nice, as you saw there, when we made a change, same menu. So you create it, edit it with the same type of menu. So should be very straightforward as you begin to adopt PMI definition inside of NX. So next section was, how do we automate? What do we do? How do we apply this quicker, right? I don't want to make all those individual selections like I would. How can I speed up the process? So in this area, what we have created is the model-based definition tool inside of NX. And so what this allows is, number one, we prime the pump by applying and producing over 100 out-of-the-box automation rules for you. So you can use the things that we've created. If there are ones that you find, hey, it doesn't quite do exactly what I want, we have a logic editor that you can create your own from scratch, or you could edit the existing ones here. And so the power of that is that, again, speed. I can select the geometry once and let the system go and figure that out. And so if we take a look briefly at the logic editor, it is something that you're not having to code, right? You can go in, you can search on the elements that you want. You can see in this particular example, the top part are any of the features that we're looking for. We can find that, drag that into the screen, so drag and drop. And then as you select on any of those elements, when you right mouse button on a particular node, it will give you, okay, what do we connect to? What are the other types of information that we can drive? And so as you see those spaghetti lines connecting the things up, that will then show you on the part in the bottom, it'll give you that preview. And so it's very powerful as you go through that process. Also, as we mentioned already, just the time savings, right? So if you look at the part, we started with that little drive mechanism. It's very simplistic, right? It just gives you an idea of some small test cases. But when you start to get into something like this that has multiple holes, multiple pockets, multiple features that you're trying to, think about having to go in and select all of those individually. That would take you, much more time because you're doing each individual selection. Now with the NX MBD, I can use that rule, apply that to this part, just pick the component, let it run, and it will do the inquiry, find the things, and then document what you see on the screen there. So all of those were done by one click as opposed to 20 times, 90 times making all those selections. And what's nice is, this information gets stored inside the part file. and you can edit, you can add things, all of that to it. So let's see how that actually works in reality then. So if we take a look at this particular component, it has a number of different holes on it. And so from our reuse library, we have, these are the out of the box rules. I'm using the things that are available to you today, right? So in this case, if I needed to dimension everything, I wanted it to go grab all those. We have an option to go in, find all the holes, group them together, create the PMI dimension plus the tolerancing, right? So when you have hole dimensions, you have the different tolerance and fits. So we've already got that built into this one where you can do the different types. And so you see we picked an H7, it already knows what all those values are, right, from a table to fit that in. So it's literally that fast. I picked the model, it inquired, it found everything. So it knew what geometry goes along with that, right? And this is important when you use it downstream. Also knew the count. And again, the tolerances that we put, the fits that we actually selected there. So other things that you might use might have a little bit more interactive, right? So the first one was pick the body, it does everything. In this case, we were creating the 3 datums. We did have a set of input, but now it's done. It has those datums created on the part file. And so then finally, we'll do a feature control frame. So the same concept as those hole dimensions, this will take everything that we have in the part, and it will go ahead and use that to then add the feature control frame. So again, by defining the datums, a couple selections, we're able to do this, multiple all in one shot. So again, instead of having to pick quite a few times, you generate that in one step. And you can see in our navigator, all that detail, everything's done. It shows you it's selected the right information and created the correct details. So same thing, just like we did the advisor before, you can use that, right? So you want to check those. Yes, we created this smart rule, but make sure, let's check and see, are there any issues that maybe I did through the interactive process? And in this case, again, max material condition should not be applied to those. It's notifying the user, hey, you could have that, but you really should clean that up. And so it's easy. We don't have to go in and pick each individual. We can just go to the rule. And from here, again, that dialogue that we use to create it, we're just going to make that adjustment to it. And then all of the PMI all at one time will be updated with that. So just a little bit different way of taking that process, right? So from a totally manual process to something that is more automated and to help you speed up and get to the end results quicker. Okay. So with that, as we move into the next area is the searching and reporting, querying information about your particular model. And so, as we mentioned, when it's a single part, it's probably not as critical. You can see everything, you can dig through the information in the navigator. But as you start to build this up into a bigger subassembly, into your full product, there's going to be times where you're going to want to show some of that at a assembly level or a sub level. And we want to be able to find it quickly and showcase that at a particular view. So here's a simple example of this, right? We have this little, to me, it looks like a hood hinge that we have here. And so as you see through the query, you can do a simple text, or you can use these, again, out of the box types. So if I'm just looking for some dimensions, or I'm looking for datums, whatever I need, I can do that. And then what information are you pulling from? Do I want all the part files, which would probably be too much information, but you can easily select a component, certain information, and drill down with that. So what it's found is, hey, on that blue part, here's the information we have on that one. What would you like to see at the assembly level? So you can select any or all of that and then display that into the view that you want to work on. So it's just a way of finding it within the parts. Again, as you get more detailed and more complicated, You want to be able to bring that to the forefront. And so the idea is, this is just a view of that information. If I want to make changes, I'm going to still go to my master part. So the front lever will go into that and make any changes that we want to. So if a designer's working on one piece, I'm working on another end, maybe Brandon's working on a third, this allows you to, do your work. It's still going to pass through to the top level. And so that's a little bit around using the queries. And again, a number of out-of-the-box ones for you. If you'd like to change those, you can do that, but a lot of out-of-the-box. So again, you have something in the toolbox to get started with. So the next important topic is with the interoperability, right? So when you're doing exchange of data with PMI, there are certain standards, right? So one of those is step AP242 will allow and is defined that standard specifically for passing the PMI information between CAD systems. Also, our JT is very good at this as well. So our JT supports the PMI information and the exchange of that between systems. So with this, if we're reading information in from someone else, we'll show how this works and what you can do with it. Because initially we just designated that, look, everything's been imported. It's really just a pretty picture. But many times you want to be able to do more with that. So let's take a look at that particular example. So in this case, we're going to showcase using JT, but this also would work if you had a step AP242 file that you were bringing forward from a different CAD tool. So what's nice is, you're going to bring it in, you're going to see the information, the PMI that's on your model. But as I mentioned, if you look in the navigator, everything says that it's imported at the moment, right? So you can't manipulate it, you can't change it, you can't do anything specific to it. But one of the functions that we have then is we can convert. So by converting it, what you'll notice is in the navigator, then it becomes a PMI label. So now once I have that, I actually have that information that now I can make certain changes to that. And so that's the type of thing that we support to bring that forward. Same thing, we'll walk through it with the datum and some of the other features and dimensions you can do that on. Now we do have, and if you look in our documentation, it does have certain types that we're not going to let you change because we really don't want you to change the original design intent. If you're getting that from a customer or a supplier and it has to be maintain that integrity. We want to make sure that you're not, manipulating the model to fit your needs. You're actually building and making what your customer wants. So those are some things, but the power is, if you need to see it, you could just import it. If you want to have more control, you can use the convert under the PMI to drive those values. So another one that comes into play is with the drawings. How do we jumpstart you, right? So a lot of people say, that sounds like it's too much. It's going to take too much to get my design teams ready to go, get them into this new paradigm. One thing that we did to help, a couple specific customers came to us and asked, hey, what about taking our existing drawings and mapping that back to the 3D model? And so that's what we did. And we'll take a look at that one next is, okay, what if I had a very detailed, model drawing? I have all this information. What can you do with it? So the project that we have in here is to convert to PMI. So within drafting, we have a capability to drive that back to your master model. So in here, you can see, it's just a simple component. Initially, there's nothing in here, right? So the views and the all of that, there's nothing showing up yet, right? So just so you know, it's starting from scratch and bringing that forward. And so what's nice about the utility is It does a preview. It will check as you decide, do you want the drawing? Do you want a view? Do you want specific entities, right? Annotations that you want to drive forward? You can pick and select what you want. Since we haven't done anything with this, we're just going to do the whole drawing sheet. We're going to take everything along. But as I mentioned with the preview, it'll show areas like that dimension. There's a couple of them. They have not turned the color to show they'll get pulled forward properly. So in this case, why is there an issue? Well, a lot of it has to do with how we selected. See how we selected the horizontal? Well, we really need that vertical edge. That's the face that the PMI wants to attach to. So we have to make those adjustments. If you've kind of been, in drafting, it doesn't matter where I pick, just as long as it's the endpoint. Well, here the PMI wants, some specific faces, and that's what it's going to actually use there. So we have to make a few updates, right, as we're working on this, and then be able to drive those into the model. So we can see that it has accepted those. Those are good changes. And now we're ready to go ahead and push that information through. So that's what you'll see then as we go back to the model. Now, when we look at our MBD navigator, we can see there's a status that shows you each of the views that have been added with PMI. Also, all of those section views were created for us as well. So a great way to again, jumpstart your process in adapting. Once you get familiar and start moving, then you could start new projects and things by this. But this would be a great way. And you can see here, how good of a job did it do? What does it look exactly like that view? Does it have all of the dimensions and GD&T on there? You're seeing that it does carry over all of that that information. Now, the one thing to remember is once you do this, that drawing is not tied to the PMI. It's just a one-time shift of that information. So just be aware that, this was all done, the drafting application on the left. Now you have the information on the right-hand side. So if you were to change one or the other, it's not going to update either side. You might make a change to the drawing. You could re-output that particular view, but it's not an associative like you would have from the model to the drawing. And that's intentional, right? We want to make sure that once you make that break from the drawing, you're using the PMI going forward. But a pretty detailed case of how you could make use of this. And again, there were a couple key OEMs that pushed for these tools to be put into NX, and I think it was a good investment there. So just like we talked about interoperability, I think it's the same kind of tied to it with collaboration. So how do we take that information and share that, right? Once I've created NX, you might be sending that outside your four walls. You might be using it with other groups within your company, and they may be using other tools, right? So the product that we have for that is the technical data package. And so what this allows you to do is you can output a couple different formats. PDF is very popular with 2D drafting. It's also the 3D PDF is pretty popular as well. And why is that? Well, you have a free viewer, right? With Adobe, you can open up PDFs. It's a free viewing tool. It's very easy. Everybody knows how to use it and work with it. So what we can do is output the 3D PDF using this module, and that will generate, based on a template. It'll put the 3D views in there, all of your PMI views, and other information that you want to capture from your design to use in that. Now, that could be used for manufacturing. It could be used for quality. These templates you can change and make however you need to. The other thing is JT. So we do JT plus the PDF, and that way you can use our JT to go viewer. So again, another free viewing tool that would allow you to do that. So both of those formats are supported. As I mentioned here, there is templates out of the box, so you can use those to get started. More than likely, you're going to take those and you're going to tailor those to your needs within your company, depending upon who are you sending it to? Are you sending it to a supplier? Are you sending it out to the shop floor? But the template environment, very simple. It looks like really NX drafting, so to speak, and then you're just dragging and dropping these different elements in there and setting up the template the way you would like to use it. And then when you're ready, after you've completed the work that we've shown already, you can publish to that, and we'll see that momentarily. So I think I've already talked about this, but from a free viewing, Adobe Reader handles the 3D PDF well. A lot of customers go that route. In fact, this module has been one of those that has had great uptake and acceptance and sales. So that's been a big one that people have used. And then the JT Plus PDF definitely is capable as well. And what's nice is I will say, if you say, well, why should I use one or the other? As you get larger and larger assemblies, actually the JT Plus PDF, it handles that better than what I've seen on the 3D PDF side. Okay, so as we take a look, let's take a look at that one then. So it is part of the PMI ribbon bar, but as we'll talk a little bit about pricing, packaging, all that. But you pick the method, you have the templates to choose from. So whether it's a single part, whether it's an assembly, all of those different types that you might want to output. And it's really, what views do you want to share with them? Obviously, we want to share the PMI views, but there may be some others. We support both native and team center. So if you're going to save this, it will create those the data set for us. You may have some textual input that you want, like a title block, that type of thing. You can have all of those. Those get defined in the template, and then they show up here when we're ready to publish. You can put attachments. So it's not just the information that's on the screen, but you can select different type of information. Maybe you have a step AP242 file you want to send along to your supplier. You can do that. Maybe you have a document you want to attach. You can put all that together. And so once you're done, you push the publish, it'll take all that information and generate that single file for you. And so once that's done, in this case, we're working under Team Center. So if you go to your active workspace and you're looking at the information, we can, quickly search on what we're looking for that particular product, find the information, see that what are the attachments there. So it's going to be the part file, the JT file, and in this case, the technical data package. So all the containers are there, and it's all supported for you for those using Team Center. And then from there, if you want to put it through a workflow to select status, or if you want to output this, say we're going to email to one of our suppliers or partners, we'll go ahead and just output that file. And so once it opens up into Adobe, this again is just a sample out of the box template that we have, right? So some of the data across the top shows you those textual inputs. In the middle is the viewport, right? So just like you were working in NX to be able to rotate and see each of the views with the PMI, there's some nice tables that we could add to this template that show all of the PMI, so you could filter and do some things there. And then also, as you look at any of the attachments, they're right here. We can download those and open those up from the 3D PDF. So it's just a nice way of being able to share that. Anybody can work with that. There is some security with the 3D PDF, so you can put password on that, so that if for some reason somebody else got a hold of it, they couldn't just open it up and take a look at your information, your IP. So this one here, I think the value is evident as to what does this really do for people, but it really is a low cost way to create these. I think it is definitely better. If you think about drafting, we have to train our mind to understand what a drawing is. We've taken the 3D reality, broken it into a drawing. Here, if we're using the 3D CAD model, documenting it that way, it's much easier, I think, for our mind. We know that that's how we work normally. So it really gives you the details and the ability to see much better and clearer, and to interrogate, right? You can move that around, check things using this methodology. So just a really good way to share and collaborate with your designs. So the next segment we want to cover then is, getting to that model-based enterprise. The idea is not to shift the workload from drafting to creating PMI models, right? The idea is we want to be able to use that information. And so what are some of the things that we can do? And I think this graphic is one of the best that illustrates is design is that initial point, right? But where do we go with it? Well, tolerance stack up, right? We'd like to know what's the impact of these tolerances on our design. Are we in scope? Are we out? Are we conforming, non-conforming? Things for manufacturing. Think about manufacturing planning. When I'm creating something, I might have a plate of steel, I might have a bar stock, I might have a cast part. Well, how do we get through all of those stages to the final product? Be nice if this information traveled along with that and was reusable. We just talked about the TDP, right? So when you go outside the organization or even inside, who's getting that? How do we share it? And then on the right side, manufacturing. Be nice if they would take this and use this to help them speed up their manufacturing processes, right? Offline programming. Same thing with inspection, right? So coordinate measuring machines, how can we program that faster, right? With this information so that my user didn't have to take a drawing and try to make sure they were either manufacturing or inspecting properly. We could feed that information into the application to drive that. And that's our goal. That's the vision and where we're going with our tools. And so here's a couple of those, right? So on the manufacturing side, think of the stage modeling or process modeling. That's where we have, say, the finished part, and we want to process that back to what was the stock size, what happens in each particular operation that we're doing with that. And so stage modeling is an application that we have inside of NX to help us with that. And the power is, if you're using the PMI, this is what allows you to then drive that information, right? You're able to move it from one part to the next, and this is all associative to it. Also, if you have dimensions or sizes, if you put stock, if you use synchronous modeling, all of that will update and drive the model appropriately. And so again, this helps reduce that time for manufacturing planning. And then on the right side, as you see in our machining package, feature-based machining, it will use the PMI information to help us select the right tool. If we're doing drilling, what's the right spot drill and tap that it should be pulling? It's going to use that information from the PMI to help us with that. And so that's where you start to see those dramatic benefits and time savings, right? So that's where it's not 5 or 10%, it becomes 50, 60, 70% time savings as you go in and create those products. So that's a little bit on the machining side. If we go to the quality side, just two of the things inside of, again, NX is one is we have the NX VSA product. So if I want to do tolerance stack up analysis, I can use the PMI that's created on those models and perform the different tests and studies, right? Are we within conformance, out of conformance? It also helps us determine, what part should we maybe adjust? Maybe the tolerance is too tight or too loose, and it's causing a manufacturing problem when we assemble it, or, we're having issues because of those tolerance that we've put into the design. And so this is a type of tool to help us improve the accuracy and the build of our products. And then again, on the right side is, CMM inspection, right? Coordinate measuring machine. So think of that as, the cam that drives a quarter measuring machine. We can read that PMI and it will actually generate all the inspection paths. I just tell it, here's the model, here's the PMI, generate all the inspection paths off of that. And so it'll read that and quickly generate, and then you can run through, verify that, and then go ahead and push that out to your coordinate measuring machine. So again, this is where dramatic changes and reductions happen. And that's where we say it's not just in the design time, it's through the entire process that we're really making an impact, right? So across your digital thread, for design to manufacturing to inspection, this is where we're going to take time out of your process. So we'll start to close and wrap up some things. So we'll talk about getting started. So for NX PMI, that is included in our Mach 2 packaging and higher. It comes with it. So you have the PMI capability. If you have a Mach 1 bundle, which is our foundation bundle, you would add NX design tokens. That is how you would get the PMI functionality to create the information in a Mach 1 bundle. Then on top of that is the model-based definition. So the automation and checking type, that's where you could either purchase the add-on module by itself and the product code there, or if you had the design tokens, you would have PMI and the MBD tools built into the tokens. And that just gives you the flexibility. What would you like to do? How much are you in the system? How much do you need of that? So very flexible and scalable to provide that to our users. And then the other side is the technical data package. So this is a separate add-on module to any of your bundles. So any Mach bundle that you would have, you could add this capability. So the ability to publish, that's what you're using the module for. The viewing, that's all free that we talked about. So from Adobe, the JT2Go, those are free methods to do that. If you're a Teamcenter user, you can actually use the viewing from within the TC Viz to work with that. So that obviously is a cost, that piece, but if you're using Teamcenter, you would already have some of that to work from. So those are some things that we talked about here from a design perspective. And then, from a user perspective, the documentation is online. Anybody can hit that. So if you are using the module for PMI and you're on a particular function, just hit the F1 key. That'll take you right to the documentation so that you can see some more detail about that. So even if you don't have the documentation loaded internally, as long as you can get to the web, you can go out and take a look at this information. And then the other side is some training, right? So the training on how to run the tool is important, right? So we have our Accelerator Academy. This is where we can provide you on-demand training. So you would go online, we have files, you can run it with your NX environment, and it'll take you through a lot of the things that I went through today. Those lessons are built into the training, and you can see exactly how did Mike do that, right? How can we adopt and what can we get going with it? So definitely need both parts, right? Some of the functionality, but also the way to help you adopt the tool into your organization. So these are some important pieces there. Some other things I'll just share here as we get down to the very end is just lessons learned that we have learned working with our customers. How are you successful with the deployment of model-based definition? It's not about just buying the tool from us, right? So it is actually having a roadmap, making sure that you're aligning through your business, right? Because again, yes, it gets created in design, but you have to be sure that everybody in manufacturing and quality, how are they going to consume it? Because what we've seen in some instances, why it might fail is they don't, company does not engage the rest of the organization. Design goes forward with it. Hey, we're going to make this change. And then the other groups are still working in the existing fashion. They're able to go out and say, oh, I still need a drawing. Well, design isn't sending me a drawing anymore. I need to create that. So in fact, they're going backwards instead of speeding up that process. So all of those departments is very critical to have their engagement, their buy-in to what's going to happen and how are they going to use these models as they go forward. There's got to be the planning and education, right? So even from the design team, the thing I don't have on here particularly is some of the education about using geometric dimensioning and tolerancing, PMI. If your organization either doesn't use that to a depth, you've got to get that part of the education as well. So how do we do this as well as how to push the buttons inside of NX? So there is a process evolution, right? There's going to be, yes, we're going to move to the model as being the source of truth. That's going to be our document of record, is that model, and developing those processes. Who's going to author it? Who's going to consume it? How do we go forward with it? And just how does the data flow? Maybe you're in NX within your four walls. Maybe you're using technical data package or a step AP242 to send to your suppliers. Any of those things, right? Who uses it inside our house and who uses it outside? And then finally, the risk management. The biggest thing is this is a huge cultural impact, right? It's a paradigm shift within the company. So it has to be treated that way. It has to be, looked at and really convey, why are we making this change? What's the importance? How is it going to save us time and money as we go forward? And setting up some small pilots of it. How would we work like this? Having some of your subject matter experts engaged to lay that out. And so it just, it's going to be important, as well as, don't underestimate your suppliers as well, right? Because they're going to be impacted by it as well. And so what you don't want to do is just push off either the cost or time it takes. That they're going to take the model, they're going to create drawings and all that, and it actually, again, slows them down from their process. So these are some things that we've seen and we've learned. It's very important, design and manufacturing at a minimum are aligned there. So those are some of the things from a value perspective. It really is about helping you from a time, cost, and quality perspective. And I think through the elements that we showed today, we've proven that out, right? Is that it does impact the entire organization. And in order to gain those efficiencies and time reductions and cost reductions, it takes an entire organization to do that. So we feel we can help you guys, realize that business value of going through that process and adopting this for your organization. So with that, we've gotten down to the end of our time. I guess I'll check and see, did we have some questions? Brandon, are there some things that you have been answering or going along as we've been working?
Yeah, so initially the question we had was about pricing around PMI and the model-based definition module. And I know Mason from ATA said that they would follow up after the webinar. So I think that's good for now. I think the other things were more comments.
Okay.
Good job on the presentation. Excellent presentation, Mike. Extremely powerful set of tools by Siemens. So thank you for the feedback there, Ray. Yeah, I think that's what we have so far. Are there any other questions out there? Anybody want to put a question in the chat or the Q&A or come off of mute?
Okay. All right. Well, again, I thank everyone for their time today. I know, to take an hour out is a lot to ask, but I appreciate you giving us your afternoon or morning and taking a look. So if you do have more questions, obviously, please reach out to Mason and the team at ATA. And if Brandon or I can be of help, we will definitely engage with you. So I want to thank everyone. And Mason, I don't know if you have any closing remarks, but I'll turn it back over to you.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say thank you Mike and Brandon for this really powerful presentation. And I always love that you have the coffee maker at the end to close up the presentation.
Very good. Hopefully nobody, but didn't put anybody to sleep.
So we'll get this uploaded to YouTube, and so that people can check it out. But thanks again, and thanks to everyone who joined the webinar, and we'll close it here.
Great. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Thank you.